Welcome to Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, City Manager, City of Muskegon Heights. It is a fantastic show that we have lined up for you because this show is all about getting to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know. I have joining us as special guest today the Honorable Mayor Watt, as well as the Honorable Councilman Ronald Jenkins. And I expect that we may have some other folks that join the show with us today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in every Wednesday, 2 o'clock, to participate and listen to the show. We appreciate all the comments and messages that we get from week to week. And if you're interested in participating in the show, you can dial 722-8338. Again, that's 231-722-8338. And just as a reminder, if you call in, turn down your radio in the background and just listen through the phone. There's a little bit of a delay, so we don't want to lose you in the transition. So just turn down your radio and listen for us. You are connected. But because of the delay, you may not hear us on the radio, but you should hear us on the phone. So, and just a reminder on top of that, if you do call in, we just ask you to keep it positive. The city of Muskegon Heights, Muskegon County in general, we're moving in the positive direction. And so we ask that if you have any questions, that's great. If you have comments, let's just keep it positive because that's the direction that we're going in. So I'd like to, again, welcome two of our council people to the call. Mayor Watt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All
Glad
right.
to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Councilman Ronald Jenkins, I don't know that you've been on the show since the new title, Councilman. So welcome with the official new title.
Thank you very much, and I haven't been on since then, but I'm delighted to be on. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. So I like to talk about the exciting things that are going on in Muskegon Heights, and there's so much potential and opportunity with this community, our community. We've got roads, we've got railroad, we've got water, we have a grid system. We have an amazing, outstanding community population, just warm and receptive people. I'm coming up here on my second anniversary, January 1st, I guess it is. And so I always want to remember and thank the warm reception that I received here coming in as the city manager and the pleasure and honor it is to serve our community. And that's all the good stuff. But there are challenges mixed in there. And I think we ran into a challenge this past week on Monday. We're on a calendar year, fiscal year, which means that we approve our budget. Our fiscal year starts January 1 and ends December 31st. And by statute, we have to have an approved balanced budget in place before the end of the year. And that usually takes place in the November to December timeframe. We had a meeting this past Monday that was designed to review and approve the budget. And we left the meeting without having an approved budget in place. And just to be clear to the community, it's the city manager's responsibility to put together a budget and to present a balanced budget. And so that was done Monday. Actually, it was done on the 6th. It was to give council an opportunity to review it. It was discussed on the 13th, and the public hearing was on the 20th to approve it. So, gentlemen, would you agree that that the city manager met the responsibilities of providing a balanced budget, presenting a balanced budget?
You presented to council with a balanced budget, as you are required to do.
Mm-hmm.
And as the leaders of the community, we are obligated to pass a balanced budget for the following fiscal year 2022.
Mhm.
And if we do not do so, many things fall apart. Um, January 1, we will not be able to operate as a city and spend money and pay bills and employees and a multitude of things are scheduled to collapse. Um, it's just unfortunate that the leadership of this community, some of us, made the conscious decisions to not pass the budget. When the city manager provides us with a budget, we have the opportunity, and I encouraged and tasked him with making sure that he reach out to each and every council person to schedule a meeting with each one so that they could go through the budget, ask any questions that they may have, any things that they may like, anything that they may dislike, and have a discussion about what we can do about those things. And some of us did that, and some did not. Particularly those that voted not to pass the budget did not do that responsibility as a council person. And when the budget is presented to council, you know, it's not a we must pass a budget. And it's not the etched in stone budget. If you some things in it that you do not like and you need change, we can change that via amendments after it is passed. But the not to pass a budget to for the city to operate is just malpractice as a council person to not do so. Uh, it's a lot of things that we have to deal with now because of this, and we're in touch with the governor's office and some other things, and we're working through some things to try to figure out what the next steps are. But I think that once the city finds out and recognizes the importance of what happened on Monday night by not passing the budget, and for whatever reason, for the life of me, I'm trying to think what could be a reason for anyone not to pass the budget. We went through the entire budget in council. Council had their opportunity to ask questions and of things, some things in there that I did not like, that I brought to the forefront. But I would not, under no circumstances, fail to pass the budget because I didn't like what it was. I will voice that concern later in asking for an amendment to that item rather
So,
than not passing the city's budget.
I'd like to pull in here Councilman Jenkins, and being new to the council, stepping into this role, knowing that we closed out the previous year in a deficit, um, knowing that we're under task to provide the Treasury Department a deficit elimination plan and a corrective action plan to address those deficits. Um, what does it mean to you, from your perspective, the fact that we're now facing a third challenge, which is the
A real
failure,
crisis now.
right? The failure to adopt a balanced budget.
Well, city manager, Mr. Bill. One of the things that is it's a disappointment, to say the least. It's very disappointing. Prior to me running, I saw some of the challenges that was before me, and that was something that I was hoping to be able to bring about change and to help us to move forward as a city. However, the community went out and they spoke with their votes, and those that did not vote spoke with their votes. And this is the position that we're in, as we are now, still in the same position we were a year, 2 years ago, and years on. And this is sad. When we get to the point that we, as a council, who are mandated and in position to provide a balanced budget and to put in a balanced budget, to approve a balanced budget for our city to operate, that we had city council members leave out of chambers without doing so. That was terrible. And we all voted whether we wanted to stay there longer or we wanted to move it to a different day. The vote went through to stay there to finish the vote, to finish the approval of the budget.
That was about
One
five
of the
and a
things
half
that
hours, right?
Right. One of the things that's saddening to me is that we had that budget for at least 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks
Hmm.
to go over. And as mayor stated, as council, city manager, from what I know, the city clerk provided us with the budget, provided us with the panel, provided us with the agenda in an amount of time that is needed for us to be able to set personal meetings with the city manager. So this is what I want the city to know. If we're going to move forward, if we're going to be better, we're going to have accountability to all of us as council people that you all voted in to be able to do our jobs and do our jobs effectively, not to pinpoint certain aspects of our job, but to help our city to be better, to build new homes, to bring in new businesses, and to do the things the right way, and to hold all of our workers and all of our people accountable, including ourselves. So yes, it's a disappointment. It's a disgrace to our city. We are a poor example to the state of Michigan that the city of Muskegon Heights, we as council, and I say we because I don't want to single out anyone because that's the first thing they start talking about is that we're singling out. So I say we as a council did not provide a balanced budget. Now, city manager, you stated something that our city, our people need to know. We cannot operate in the year 2020 without such.
2022.
And it was 2022 without
Hmm.
such. And just to remind the public, it is not that we did not state these things in the meeting. It is not that we did not make it available or the information available. That do we know what we did? I announced that. Do we know the magnitude of what we did? And they got on their cell phones and said, hey, I am on my way. I'm going to be doing this here, and left out of council with knowing it's not that they didn't know, normally that we will not be able to operate in 2022. Now, mind you, and I want the public to know, no disrespect to the city manager, no disrespect to the mayor. I have no respect of person when it comes down to serving the city of Muskegon Heights. So, whatever personal issues that people have or had, it had nothing to do with us serving and holding our responsibility as council people to vote on a balanced budget, knowing that we can amend whatever we didn't agree with or talk about whatever we did not want to agree with prior to leaving. If we had to stay there till 11, if we had to stay there till midnight, if we had to stay there till 1 a.m., our duty, our sworn in duty, was to do our best and to operate the city. And what happened, city manager, brother mayor, what happened? We failed. We failed every citizen. We failed every boy and girl representing and going through our city, and we failed our employees. No matter how many times we want to talk about we care about our employees, we care about our families, we failed them when we did not do what we do. And I'm sorry for going on so long, but I'm very passionate about what I'm talking about, and I'm
Hmm.
very passionate about doing the best for our city.
So,
Yeah,
do you
and
want to?
I would say, in that failure, there were some council people that did their fiduciary responsibility and voted for the budget.
Yes,
We need a supermajority, which is a 5-2 vote to
yes,
pass the
So,
city's
so we
budget.
had a majority of
Yeah,
council
yeah,
for. I think the vote
four
was, if I
three.
wasn't mistaken, four in favor of the agenda and three. I mean, the budget and three that were opposed to it. Right. And I'm going to pose this question to you for the listeners. Was there something specific that was identified from that you can recall that was a reason to not support the budget?
That um, in my opinion, there was nothing specific that
Hmm.
we could not have passed the budget and come back to an amendment to fix. And that's the way the process should work.
Hmm.
Mr.
Um,
Mayor, Mr.
it's
Mayor, I want to even say I want to add in, and I don't mean to cut you off. I want to add in that was nothing stated
absolutely
on record a reasoning or a concern of why we did pass the budget. That's what is more bothersome. Whether they had concerns or not, their concerns were not stated and put
Exactly.
on record so that we could talk about it. We can adjust, agree or disagree with the budget. All we did was met on the budget, had the city manager present the budget, and we went from chapter to chapter, from section to section, and that was it. That was embarrassing and a waste of time. I spent 2.5 hours with the city manager, or a little bit more if I add up more days,
Mhm.
asking questions and going over the budget. And the city manager would tell you, just as yourself, brother mayor, there was things in there that I had questions about that I didn't totally agree with. But I was not. I was going to do my due diligence to make sure that we passed the budget and knew that we still had to do what we had to do to make amendments to move forward as a city, especially knowing that our city members and our concerned citizens will be coming in to ask questions to wonder why are we doing something.
So there was a question that was posed, and you touched on this a little bit, Mayor, in the beginning. What are the impacts to our businesses and to our citizens of not having a balanced budget? And before we you jump into responding to that, Councilman Jenkins and Mayor Watt, just so our listeners know that the requirement of the budget is that we project what we think our revenues will be, a reasonable projection of what we think our revenues will be, and a reasonable projection of what we think our expenses will be. And in order for it to be a valid and acceptable budget, according to the Uniform Budgeting Act, Michigan Uniform Budgeting Act, that projection of revenues and expenses must result in more revenues projected than expenses projected. And it becomes, like you said, Mayor, a guideline, a guidepost for how we spend money going forward in the new year. But it is something that can be amended throughout the year as we realize either our revenues are higher or lower than we expected, and conversely, whether our expenditures are higher or lower. And there may be unforeseen conditions, the situations that come up that may implore council to consider amending the budget because something came up that was unexpected, like COVID, for instance. So, just so that the listeners know that this exercise of a budget is just a process of projecting what we think we will bring in versus what we think we will spend. And we have to have that guidepost in place in order for the state to give us the revenue share and in order for us as a community, as a city, to be authorized to spend $1. So, as of January 1, without a budget in place, we will not be able to have employees work. They will have to be furloughed because we cannot spend money and we can't ask people to work for free. So that means that nobody will be coming to work, 911, fire department, the whole kit and caboodle. It also means that we are in default of our requirement to provide a deficit elimination plan, a corrective action plan associated with last year's deficit. And finally, that also means that we may be in default of our existing bond commitments. And as a bondholder, there may be stipulations in the agreement that allow them to call all of our bonds due immediately. So instead of giving us the 20, 30 years that we have in place to pay off those bond commitments, they may demand that we pay them immediately. So those are just a few of the consequences to answer that question. Thank you for the question, Maricela.
Yeah, and to just sum it up, we can't do anything.
There you
It's
go.
almost like we don't exist. It's like, uh, uh, you know, having no money in the bank to do nothing. You can't write a check. You can't operate. You can't pay employees. You can't open the doors of City Hall for the citizens that come for for help or to get answers. We
Right.
can't operate. And that's just malpractice as a leader, as a council person, to put the city in a trick bag when it didn't have to happen this way. It's just a totally unnecessary um, position we're in.
Right.
This, is no reason under the sun, as mayor, that I can think of, that we should not have passed the budget. If you don't like it, you don't like it. You come back and you work to amend it. But one of the important things is that you have the opportunity to go to the city manager to discuss the budget. I made sure and asked him on several times, had he contacted each council person to schedule appointments to come in and review the budgets to see what it is they like, what it is they do not like, what things that we do they want to see change, if anything.
And
And those,
specifically, when we approved the budget schedule, the meetings for the schedule, we included in that conversation, sorry to interrupt you, Mayor, in that conversation on the dais, that the budget would be presented on the 6th, and that council people would have an opportunity for that full week between the 6th and the 13th to schedule time with the city manager to be able to go over any items that they had questions with, that we would review it on the 13th, and then have another 7 days to be able to schedule additional meetings to answer any unanswered questions.
yeah, and
That is
and
that is
we're on a
correct.
fiscal year budget.
Mhm.
Budget ends on December 31st,
Right.
and fiscal year 2022 starts on January 1st. So, effectively, and the biggest problem we have right now is the timing of things. The holiday season, and the timing of having to submit public notice for the budget hearing. These are things that are mandated that we must do properly in order to pass our budget.
Hmm.
And
Brother
now,
Mayor,
yes,
Brother Mayor, um, and like I said, I know we had some people that wasn't at the meeting, but let's. I wanted to keep it real. Listen, we told them that important people was going to be on vacation next week.
yeah,
So let's stay here a little bit longer, if it takes that, to get this done.
yeah,
Because we knew that we had to have, if we were going to meet next week, we had to have it posted. We had the attorney that was working behind the scenes, making sure that any question that we had, to make sure that we was in compliance with the state and the guidelines, we had the attorney there doing her job as she was supposed to do. So I want the public to know that we as council members, the four that voted on behalf of this, was trying to make sure that we did the right thing. We even went, let's talk about this. We adjourned the meeting for 15 minutes so that they can ask any questions to the city manager or get an understanding of what was going on. But instead of us taking that 10 to 15 minutes to do what we needed to do, to ask whatever questions, guess what we did as council? We walked around, laughed and talked. People stood to themselves. We did not conduct business of the city. We did not give our citizens the due diligence that they needed for us to be effective in the positions that we are supposed to be in. And that goes for me. If I'm not going to be effective and do what is right in this position, I am not here to be dictatorship to the city manager. I'm not here to be dictatorship to the mayor. I'm here to perform a duty to the citizens. It is my obligation. And if I'm failing to do it, I expect any citizen to hold me accountable. But now I'm asking the citizens, the city of Muskegon Heights, the business owners of Muskegon Heights, to hold council members accountable for what we're not doing. This is ridiculous. This is time out.
There have
We
been
can no longer do this.
there have been mentions in the past, because of some of the challenges that we're facing as a result of COVID, increased expenses. We had a tremendous spike in our overtime because we had officers that were out sick, and so the other officers had to cover, and so that spiked our overtime. And the same thing within the fire department. Additional increased expenses due to PPEs, protective equipment, personal protective equipment. Reduced revenues, our tax revenues, income tax revenues were down. All of these aspects fed into some of the challenges that we had to deal with as a result of COVID. And then many times during trying to address those, the word crisis came up. Crisis came up. Those are issues that were a result of a pandemic. Those were issues that were beyond our control, that were out of our control. This,
This is a
I'm
crisis,
concerned, is a crisis of our own
a
making.
self-made crisis.
Yes. This is
And
something
it's
that is fully within the control of our community, right, Mr. Mayor?
absolutely, this is a self-made crisis by council. It's absolutely um, unexplainable that anyone that has been given the responsibility as a leader in this community to pass a budget for our community to do the business of the city,
Mhm.
to not vote to pass that budget, and we're up against a time frame and all of the things that fall apart if it's not passed. That's irresponsible. That's just unacceptable. And
brother
and and
Mayor.
and that's I can't explain how. um, I just don't know the word to say to I think we
I
get
felt
too much
numb.
into
I
making
felt
it personal as opposed to keeping
I
this business. This is the business
brother
city.
Mayor,
This is the business of
brother
the city.
brother
How does
Mayor.
that, Councilman Jenkins, how does that make you feel, or what are your thoughts about the future? Moving.
I felt numb. Leaving
Mhm,
that meeting, I felt numb. I felt really numb
mhm,
because when I know that our emergency personnel, for example, will be working because they're obligated to work, but yet we as a city will not be obligated to pay them, that's a problem to me. We're going to be, like you said, we're going to be asking people to furlough
right.
when we shouldn't have to do that. So I want to make sure that we are just keeping it just as plain for people to understand where we are with this picture.
Mhm.
Like the mayor said, listen, the personal issues and the personal vendettas has to stop. City manager, you made an example. We were in a pandemic. Anybody understood? Not it wasn't just the city of Muskegon Heights. So I want the citizens to know this. It wasn't just the city of Muskegon Heights that suffered a strain. This was nationwide. This was worldwide, across. That's why the RCAP money is there. Now let's make this known too. Let's say this. So we got council people that is more concerned about what we're doing with RCAP money when and worried about a council or the citizen group that was put together to help make sure that that every citizen, every business owner was represented on that council to be able to do a presentation to the council for council to approve how the money is supposed to be spent. So let me say that again. The council will still be the body that approves how the money and when the money is spent. But we're arguing about something that we don't need to be arguing about. And guess what? They made that more of a point of why we're not moving forward than us being at a standstill. Now, city manager, we're more concerned, and I say we is because I got to make sure we say council, right? Council is more concerned about us paying. Now, I got to get this right. We paid for some people to tell us exactly how we can use that money. Okay, because we did not want to make
Thank
any
God we did,
mistakes.
and thank God we did.
We 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 did not want to make any mistakes. So it was $12,500, if I'm not
Exactly.
mistaken,
Yes.
that we used to pay, or we recommended to use to pay for
Consultant.
representation to consultant to tell us how we can use the money. Because again, let's keep this clear. The city of Muskegon Heights don't have all the employees, the staff members like all these other cities. that
Right.
can do the research on how
Right.
money is supposed to be spent and how that RCAP money is to be used.
Yeah.
So what we
So
did was we asked for the outside help to come in to be able to help us understand how to spend the money.
right.
So,
And
and all of that is for a reason. None of this is to be an embarrassment to any of us as a city. Again, I have no respect to people or person. I wanted to make sure that anything that we did it the right way. So for us to be upset about small things like that is ridiculous. And
Well,
matter of fact, we
thank you.
just
And
didn't
let me
pass the
let me
budget.
just say that. Let me just say this. And the bu- the budget is balanced if it would have been passed.
mhm,
That's what the city manager is tasked to do: provide us with a balanced budget,
right.
and everything is pretty much predictions and as revenue comes in and expenditures or money spent out, you balancing your budget. And the monies that were used from the American Rescue Plan money that is allowed up under the government's federal government's guidelines was
Right.
used to help balance. That was because, but this is vitally important as well. The monies that were spent in the fiscal year 2021, 92% of the monies that the revenue money that came in was used for things that we must do and spend it for as a city. Let me
Right.
make that clear. There was no frivolous spending on anything. The problem is we're not bringing in more revenues. We have
Hmm.
maintained this city on the status quo on the taxpayers' backs for too many years and not brought in any new revenue, and trying to sustain things and give more raises and do new and create other things at the same level of revenue that we have been bringing in year over year over year. And that's how you get into a deficit.
Right.
But you have
Yep.
to do things to balance that. And the city manager provided council with a balanced budget for fiscal year 2022. We did
I,
not
So
pass it.
and I
can
believe,
I say this?
just to make sure that's clear, the budget reflected an imbalance of $335,000 and change on the positive side, which means that
Exactly.
it is a balanced budget.
Let
That means more revenues than expenditures.
Now, if
can I
there
say
are
this
now,
part?
let me say this. Hold on, Councilman. Now, that's the budget. You know, it showed a positive of 330 plus thousand at the end of the fiscal year 2022. Throughout the year now, and even coming into January, had we passed the budget and you didn't agree with some of those things, and rather than not pass the budget and have us go into this chaotic state that we're in, this crisis, we can amend the things that you want to discuss later. But you, prior to that, we
We
all
fulfilled the
had the opportunity
responsibility.
2 weeks ago to do just that as well. Don't wait to the
I,
eighth hour talking about the things that uh, 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 you don't like, because
can I
now we
say
have to do it in an amendment.
yeah? Can I say
But
this?
pass the
Can I
budget.
say this? Can I say this part here? Budgets are. I don't. Most budgets are high. I mean, I don't see any budgets that are below. I don't see anybody budgets that are below where they think that they could go. I think most budgets are always higher than what you want to spend. You'd rather have your budget higher than to have it lower, and you got to do something later on down the line. So to for us to say that areas in our budget was I mean too high and it was frivolous. I think that's what the word I just saw.
Yeah.
I think to me, as a council, that's where we come in at then. If something comes up later in the year that in our budget that we don't want to approve, then at that particular time, it could be in May or June. If it's something that we don't want to spend money on, just because it's in our budget doesn't mean that we have to approve it. That's what really bothers me. We are on, I mean, we are really, really on the page of just lack of leadership and vision.
quite
Back to where I'm at.
honestly,
We're
quite
lack of vision.
quite honestly, Councilman, it was a good budget. It is a good budget. Let's
and
stop
and
right
and
there.
and,
It's a good budget. And
and
if you
I'll tell you.
compare it to previous budgets prior to this administration and this city manager, if you compare it, it's a great budget. Let's look at that.
I'm a little biased, but I will say that we did something a little bit differently this year. Instead of the city manager sitting down with the finance director and crafting a budget, we went through the painstaking process of having all department heads participate in putting this budget together so that each department head could identify their priorities in conjunction with understanding the competing priorities of the other departments. And we went through this budget in a series of multiple meetings. We tore it apart, put it back together 3 different ways to make sure that we were making and putting together the most effective budget, both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side, that could be as accurate as possible and meet the requirements of the statute, as well as meet the requirements that we are under to create a deficit elimination plan based on the fact that we ended last year with a deficit.
What I
So,
like what you did, city manager. What I like what you did in this budget. Um, I like that you had department heads, not just you present the budget to council, but you brought department heads in for them to be able to speak on the budget and to be able to be asked any questions of concern from council. So all department heads were present. They were able to be there, whether they were in person or on video chat, to answer any questions relating to the budget. So once again, I'm not sure why, as a council, if we had issues, why did we still not pass the budget, knowing that we had already had more ample enough time to ask any questions that was of dire concern to individuals?
and I will say, I mean, the saying oftentimes is, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." And it's not a perfect document because, quite frankly, we're dealing with some extraordinary and extreme challenges. It is not perfect, but there are things that could be tweaked here, tweaked there, but all things given, I would say that it is, uh, and staff together, we felt uh, pretty happy about what we put together and what we proposed in this budget in order to meet the needs of the community, to check off the boxes required by the state treasury's office and the statute, and to be able to move our community forward. But if you remember, one of the caveats that I made when we presented the budget was this: do not move forward if as a council, if we are not going to be committed to bringing in new revenue, because our budget, like the mayor said, the we're talking about 80%, 70-80% of our budget is salaries. 90% of the budget is things that we have no choice in, that we have to spend money on. And so, if we want to change, break the cycle and change the direction that we're going in, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember me, if I failed to say this, maybe this was a conversation I had in my head, but I thought I was adamant about we need to focus on bringing in new revenue because every year our expenses go up, cost of living goes up, the cost of materials goes up, and each consecutive year, even though we're not doing more, the cost goes up. So if we're going, and it goes up at a rate faster than our revenues have been going up. So we need to focus on bringing in new revenues.
Well, and when you talk about that, and as you were putting the budget together, you and I were discussing the budget and things, and I had you put together a flow chart of things that you had presented and we had talked about and we
Mhm.
had put forth as new revenue streams that were pretty solid streams of
Hmm.
revenue for the city, new,
Right,
particularly around housing. The
right.
council denied this, refused to vote on this. That's help me understand when you have a gentleman that has built homes for 30, 40 years, has a AAA rating, has ties to our community, looks like us, wants to come to our community, spend his money, build new homes in this community, and we don't even give it a vote. And so the impact of that, first of all, he applied, he was going to abide by the plan that had been that we had put together to the lot sale plan that we put together to avoid things like what we have going on now with the care lot situation, that was lots that the council literally gave to a gentleman on the backs of the premise of, I'm going to cut the grass and take care of them on Sherman Street, on Broadway Street, our prime real estate. This council voted to give that property away to this man for $100, and the premise was he was supposed to give it back if he didn't want to if he didn't want to care for it anymore. Guess what he did? He didn't give it back. He went and sold it, and that's what council did. But this plan that the city manager, the mayor, and we put together to avoid these things, to help us bring in new revenue, to sell the lots and ensure that the city is safeguarded, and that these lots, if you get one, you will do what you said you're going to do. You're going to have the taxes paid up. You're going to maintain the property, and you're going to build. This gentleman came with all of that, a $50-some thousand check to buy the lots, to pay the taxes up, and to start building. He guaranteed us that he would have at least 2 new homes built before the end of the year. Council said no. That's new revenue streams. If you look at the fact, if we had 2 new houses by the end of the year, more than likely a young couple or a working couple are going to buy that house, and that's income tax. Minimum $1,000 per person, $2,000. And then when you look at the property taxes from just 2 homes that we stand to get, a minimum of $3,000. That's 6. So you're talking $8,000 new revenue. Now do that times 29. We're being irresponsible, and we're letting personal things get in the way of the business of the city. And that's sad, that's irresponsible, and that's neglect of duty.
Final thing I want to say, brother city manager, because I know you shutting it down. Like I said, I want to make sure that the city, the people, the citizens know. Listen, we all had concerns, we all had questions, but we still had to do our due diligence and do that. We are not pets. We're not puppets for the mayor, for the manager, or of each other. We're here to do our job. And for that being the case, we had a budget presented to us with questions, but it was still our duty to pass the budget, and we didn't do it.
And so I guess a lot of citizens are probably asking, well, what now? What do we do now? What's the next thing? Well, we don't know.
Well,
We're in a limbo. We're in a crisis. We're working behind the scenes. And a councilman talked about we're in a crisis about a budget, that we weren't in a crisis. Councilman, we're in a crisis now. We're in a crisis.
in my conversation with Treasury and Michigan Municipal League and the city attorney's office, they made it clear that we are in a situation which is the exact recipe for a emergency manager.
Take over. Yep.
Heaven forbid that we end up in that situation. But if we don't have something in place January 1, that is the justification for bringing in a emergency manager.
So
Are we scheduled to meet?
My question, hold on, Councilman. My question is to those that voted no. You didn't like the budget. You didn't bring anything to the table. You didn't state your reasons why you didn't like the budget and why you couldn't vote for it. That's irresponsible. So, and now we're up against a timeline. What is your objection to the budget? What is it that you would do differently? What is it that you want to see in the budget that you don't see, or that you don't want to see in the budget? That's what we need to know, because we don't know that. You never stated that.
And to respond to one of the questions, what is new revenue? I mean, we can control our destiny in terms of building new houses. We haven't built a new house in this community since 2004, 17 years. And so new houses are the direct route to new revenue. That's, like you said, Mayor, that's income tax, that's property tax. On a $150,000 house, that's about $8,000 worth of property tax. Not
Water
only
being
is
used.
water being used, permits, permit fees, and it's important to point out water, because that right now we have a community that was built to support 5,000 houses, and we are operating on 3,300 houses, 3,300 residents. And so the cost of that water treatment plant is now being borne by 3,300 homes when it should be borne by 5,000 homes. So every house that we put up is lightening the load on the rest of us, lightening the
Hmm.
load on every other house. So that's intangible revenue. I mean, that's a value that you can't even put your finger on directly, but we know that it reduces the burden. So every single house that we build, and we can do that today. Yes, we
Hmm.
want to bring in new businesses, but that's an invitation.
Yep.
Come to our community, right? They can accept that or they can reject it. But if we build a house, that is revenue instantaneously for the city. It is one lot that is not going to have to be maintained. It's one less overgrown lot, one less place for people to dump and leave trash. So that's turning a negative to a positive. And the value of this community, it's like a hidden gem. It's like a diamond in the rough. Many communities that are in the fiscal situation that we're in have to tear down things to build. But we've got a blank palette and 1,000 vacant lots that we can build on yesterday. And
Hmm.
we can take that negative, a cost, blight, crime that is created by those vacant lots, and turn them into a instantaneous positive by putting a new house on it. And businesses follow people. People
Hmm.
follow houses. The survey, the study that was done, $80,000 study that was done on Muskegon Heights, says that we can build 175 to 200 new homes a year and not meet the demand for housing. So when people say, well, who's going to buy a house in Muskegon Heights? Well, there are people out there that are very smart, that are looking for the opportunity to get something dirt cheap in this community so that they can profit on it because they know the value of our community. And if you want to see gentrification happen when you close your eyes in a blink, it happens in communities that don't think that their community is worth anything. And that's exactly when somebody scoops in
Yeah.
who knows what it's worth and takes advantage of it.
And let me just add to that. Um,
Mhm.
and look around you in your community. There's development of these homes that have been sitting right now. People are buying them, they're redeveloping, and they're doing excellent jobs on these homes. Our community is worth something. So for someone to say or ask the question, who wants to live in Muskegon Heights? I know many people that have come to me that wants new homes, wants to stay in the Heights, wants
Mhm.
to have a new home built, but right now we don't have inventory. So there are a
Right.
lot of people that want to live in the Heights that want new homes to answer that question. I
Right.
mean, we have to start. We have to, but we can't start fighting.
And
We have to come together to make decisions for this community to move it forward. And we will. We will.
well,
We're gonna work through this somehow, if God willing.
right. And before we move on to talk about what's next, I do want to add something to what you said, Mr. Mayor. The developer that was coming in here and was offering to build new homes. In addition to the stipulations that we put in place, which was pay the taxes up front, build in 3 years, clean up the lots, the other stipulations were, and this is important because this is
Yes.
why the program that we put together is here to protect our community. He also had to provide access to down payment assistance. He also had to provide credit repair. He also had to be willing to provide mentorship for 1 to 3 years for people in this community with the express purpose of transitioning people who are renting in our community into homeowners,
Yeah.
to move our majority of renters into homeowners. So that is taking care of our community so that the people that take advantage of these new homes reflect our community, that are part of the culture of this community, and it is not gentrification displacement.
You forgot one thing,
What was
Mr.
that?
City Manager.
Hmm.
The fact that if the builder didn't do any of the things that he said he would do,
Right.
we have in place now, which we didn't have in place.
The ability, just to finish his
Hmm.
sentence, the ability to take that property back. If they didn't fulfill any of those details, you back, Mayor? If you
He's
didn't
probably going
fulfill,
to log off and come back on. So
yeah. If the builders do not fulfill those requirements, those stipulations, then the city has all the pieces in place. Quit claim deed already filed, power of attorney already filed, all the documentation required to instantaneously take that property back. So all the interests of the city were protected in that regard. I think that's where
and
the
and
mayor was
and
going
just to, right, yeah, and just to add on some more things, we talked about the wow factor. I mean, when we start seeing things happening in our city, we're going to
with.
start seeing people are going to start saying wow.
Mhm.
You have some things we have some things that's coming in to replace some of the water lines, the piping that
Mhm.
should be done already. That's going to help change some of the roads. That's going to change some of the things that's going on in the city of Muskegon Heights. So we're headed that direction. As a council, we just got to start working together, doing a better job of communicating with one another, and just trying to come up with solutions and eliminating the problems.
Mhm.
And all these personal things, I didn't get on for that, and I'm big enough to be able to say that hey, I don't agree with everything, but I'm going to stand for what's right, and that's one of the things that I see. I see a lot of great things that's happening. It is our responsibility to hold the charge to the city manager to do the job to bring revenue, and personally, I see that he's bringing ideas, but it's up to us to vote it in. If we don't like some things, then well, let's make some amendments to some things. Let's start saying, okay, well, we like this idea, but can we add this or can we subtract this? And that'll help us with moving forward. Right now, we're at a standstill, and I don't like standing still. I like moving forward. And so, again, to our citizens, our community, let's not complain, let's not fuss, let's stand up and make a difference. Let's come in and state to all of us as council what you all require of us, what you all expect out of us. And that's what we're there for. So I'm hoping that we could get this done before January 1, before December 31st. City manager, I don't know what if we got the announcement out in a timely fashion and not for us to be able to have another meeting next week. But if so, then we'll be able to move forward. But I'm still waiting to hear the word whether we can or not.
And that's a good question. And I'm waiting to hear back from the city attorney, their assessment. I understand the clerk who reports to council is out of town, and that's a challenge that has to be overcome. The public noticing requirements by law have to be addressed. And I know the city attorney is looking into how how they can position us to empower us to be able to move forward with those notice requirements. So all of
and
that.
and make that clear, city manager. Make that clear. The city clerk did tell us that night that if we were going to have to meet, she needed to know before she left, and we didn't do that.
Right. And so that leaves us in a little bit of a pinch as a city and as a community. So it remains yet to be seen what the future is going to hold in the next few days before January 1st. Hopefully, there'll be a solution that we can pursue
Yeah,
that will allow us to get a balanced budget passed in that time. Um, and so that we'll be able to move forward. So that question mark is there. Now, I know, Mary, you asked me what were the revenue generating objectives that were put forth that were opposed. And if you want me to list them, I have the list here. So I can go through that list for you. Are you back
Can you
with
hear me,
us?
Miss? Okay, I'm back. But let me
Hmm.
apologize. I got knocked off there. But I think you might have finished what I was trying to say in terms of
hmm,
Hmm.
these builders. The lot plan that we have in place now requires them to do the things that they must do. And
Right.
if they don't, that property will revert back to us. And you know how they have signed a reversible deed back to the city which says, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. So now it's the city's property again. Unlike what we have on Sherman, all of those signs that you see that said sold, council gave that away for
Mhm.
$100. And if he didn't want to clean it, he was supposed to give it back to the city. He didn't come back to us. He sold our property. And now we have to go to court or find a way to take it back or get it back. It's unfortunate. We were lied to, flat out lied to.
Mhm.
But the bottom line is we didn't have any protection in place to keep
Nothing in
that from
writing.
happening.
Nothing
Now
in
we
writing.
do. And for the life of me, if I don't care if they want to build a $300,000 house with their money wherever they want to build it in our city. If they don't do it, we get the property back. But why
Right.
wouldn't you want them to build a 180 to 200 or some $1,000 house in your community? That brings your
Right.
value up. We had a person come to City Hall saying, ask the question, what is a $180,000 house going to look like next to mine? Do I need to answer that?
And the builders that we've been talking to understand that they need to address the full range of price points in our community. And so there is part of this initiative and effort to make sure that we make houses that are renovated available between $40,000 and $80,000, rehab homes, so that we provide an opportunity on the lower end of that scale, as well as properties that are 150,000 and above. So there is not, and some people may have misunderstood that this whole idea of building new houses is just about bringing people from outside the community in. That is actually the opposite. This whole plan that the mayor has led us in putting together is designed to make it available to the people who live in this community at all price points. And so don't
Absolutely.
think.
I mean,
Don't,
let's be honest. We have a lot of people that live in this community that can and want to afford a $200,000, $300,000 house if we had
Mhm.
that type of inventory. I mean, we have people that want to live here but
Right,
want a nice new home that will appreciate as we're building. We
What I
can't.
like,
We have to improve the value of our community. That's the first thing we must do if we want to start to generate new revenue is
what I like,
improve the value. And how do we
what
do that? Build new homes.
what I
what's that,
like about the
Councilman
plan
Jenkins?
that what I like about the plan that you guys put together, what I like about the plan is that we're going to be taking young people, we're going to be taking renters, we're going to be taking families from within the community, and these builders will have to be required to help maintain or show how to do credit repair,
Hmm.
how to budget, and
Hmm.
how to be able to properly maintain and operate as a new homeowner.
Hmm.
These are things that they're going to be a part of helping. So there's some training that's going to be going on in the midst of these new agreements that I'm hearing. Is what it is. It becomes up to us to hold these people accountable. What
Accountable.
has happened in the past, we haven't not had the accountability and holding people to what they agreed to, nor and I heard city manager and I heard the brother mayor, I heard you both say that in just a few minutes ago, that we did not have certain things in writing. Now we have things in writing. Now it goes back to what I stated in one of the meetings. We look at our attorney and we say, this is in writing. Now we hold these people accountable to what they agreed to, or we have our property back. But guess what? We already have the money because they already paid up in advance.
Right.
Exactly.
We're in a win-win situation in the city of Muskegon Heights. We're in a
Yes.
win-win situation. And
Yeah.
any business person, any business, and I said this in one of the meetings, as a business person, business-minded person, we must be able to see how to utilize the monies that we have to grow money, to make money work for us. Not if we have a 1.6% interest rate on something, why would I take any of my RCAP money to pay on that? Any
Right.
business person in their right mind know at a 1.6% interest rate, you'll never find that again. But we want to take money that we can utilize to beautify our city, to bring more revenue to our city, and to also give back to our citizens, give back to our workers. We'd rather use that money as if we're borrowing it. No way.
Right.
That is not good
You,
business.
or pay down the water fund to save each household $2 a month. as opposed
I
to
just wanted to make sure that we understood where that was going.
correct.
1.6% interest rate. And
Right.
if I don't have that percent interest rate right, I want one of you guys to correct
Put it this
me.
way, low.
But it is one. Am I right with the interest rate?
Yeah, it's
Histo-
low.
Historically low. We'll never see an interest.
Historically low.
Right.
So, but this is where we are, you all. And
Yeah,
again, I'm very optimistic. I'm more of the positive person when it comes down to things. I look beyond the faults and
yeah.
look at the needs of the people in our community. I don't care to argue with our council members. That is not what I'm about. I'm not here to degrade or put down, but I know we got to work together.
We got to
We
work
have to
together.
learn how to agree to disagree without holding personal vendetta and personal issues and having these things. We all have sinned. We all have come short. We all have failed to do certain things in our lives.
Okay.
But we have to move forward as people. And look, we're all the same. If we look in the mirror, we're all the same.
Yes.
So
And
no
let
matter
me
what
say
we
this,
do,
Councilman.
we got to move forward.
Yes, we do. And the one thing that it's a culture that comes into the city council meetings on a weekly basis with a misinformed culture that's being provided bad information weekly that comes in and tells us all these things that we're doing and we're not doing, and they're wrong with their information. And so maybe we need to do a better job of getting information out. But we have
Hmm.
Mr. Bell have a weekly show here to where we bring information weekly. So if you're listening, come right here every single Wednesday at this same time. He is right here to
Hmm.
answer questions, to provide information that you might not know, that you need to know, or that you want to know. What's the name of your show, Mr. Bell?
Where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know,
That's
reaching
a
new
good
heights.
motto.
Well, last thing I want to say too, one thing that I do want to say is that when we come, I'm hoping that one day that we can get our city council meetings and our school board meetings on opposite days so that we can have people that are concerned and have course and could bring more even ideas and thoughts to the city or to the council. We can all be one unified city. We can be one unified body. So I'm going to continue to work on that, brother mayor,
I'm with you on that. I agree with that. I
city
agree with you on
manager,
that.
that
We,
we can actually do some better things in our city. So bring it in
Yeah.
to get to know what you need to know now that you know.
Right. And I would say this one last thing. In spite of all of the challenges that we've had these last 2 years, and in spite of COVID, in spite of the many setbacks that we self-prescribed and put on ourselves, we are moving in a good direction. We have
hmm
accomplished a lot of things. We're doing a lot of things. We're cleaning up our city. We're bringing in new developments and new business. Come springtime, you're going to see some development in this city that you have not seen in a very, very long time since the development of family care. And for anyone that wants to stop that progress, that wants to become a sabotager or sabotage this momentum,
saboteurs.
shame on you. I mean, we got a lot of good. The one thing that we have to get to doing is developing new housing. We have to get that going, and that would be that will catapult us to the next level of where we're going. And once we get that momentum, you will see we will have more developers knocking on our door than we care to answer.
They're
So, and
swarming
right
now.
now they're knocking, rehabbing the houses that you think are worth nothing. They're rehabbing those houses and making them beautiful. Drive around, look, and they're doing them right. So
Hmm.
you say
Not
your community is not worth anything. There are those that think not. And once we start to build those houses, it becomes more valuable and they're going to begin to knock down our doors. But we have a lot of good things. Look at downtown. We took pushback just from putting fences around the pocket park there to keep it clean and beautified and to have a location where we can go and have some events at on a Friday evening. We got pushback from council people. What is it that you want and this is the biggest problem we have. We have a city manager. He manages the city. We need to get out of his way and allow him to do his job. We can't micromanage. We can't make the decisions of operations of the city on a daily basis. That's his job. We're a policy making body. We got to get out the way of the city manager and allow him to do his job. we got a lot of people that think and want to be city managers. Well, they probably should go back to school to do that.
Mhm.
But we have a city manager, and I think he's doing a good job. We need to support him more, and I need to hold him accountable more. We all do. I
Yes.
think I do a pretty good job of it, but I'll do
Brother,
better if I'm not.
Brother
So
Mayor,
That's
we
you
got
you
to,
said it.
perfect opportunity to pitch the housing project. 50 houses in 5 years, 50 and 5. So if we
I
can
want
build
more than that.
average 50 houses per year for the next 5 years,
Oh,
that's
per
200
year, per year.
per
Okay.
year. Yes.
We, I,
250 homes in 5 years. That's
that's a good goal.
$2.6 million of revenue right
That's a
there.
goal.
Mhm.
That's a
We can do
vision.
that.
We
That
can.
is a vision. That
Right.
is a vision. And Brother Mayor, I'm
50 for
glad that you
5.
stated that we're not here to micromanage. We're
Right.
here to actually just hold him accountable. And the way that we hold him accountable, when it's time to do evaluations and all those things, that's when we are supposed to, as counsel, correct and direct him. I mean, that's when it really hurts him or helps him.
Yeah.
And I think any city manager, anybody in position of authority, superintendents and all, do not want negative evaluations. So we want the numbers to go up. So 50 and
50 per
one,
5.
50, 50, 50 and 5, 50 per 5.
Mhm.
I'm all into that. That's a vision. Anybody that don't have a vision, we fail. So knowing that you have a vision, knowing that we as council should be supporting the vision as long as we're doing the right thing, and it's our responsibility to just ensure we're doing the right thing. Hey, let's move forward.
Yeah.
So that's what
And
we are. Let's
yes,
move. Let's go.
that's where we are. And the other thing is that, we it's several things that we could do in this community that can change the landscape and change our trajectory for the good in a very short period of time. But we must make those decisions. That's developing houses and redeveloping our lakefront. We have to do those things. Water is where people want to be, where they want to see things, where they want
And
to
we
go.
have it. And we have
And we
water.
have it. And
Right.
now this is my point to that. Everybody, I'm 58 years old, young man. The last time I was in that water, I was probably 13. The last time anyone was in that water probably was when I was 13. We need to clean this beach up. We need to get that pavilion going.
Mhm.
And we need to do other developments out there to make it attractive for our community, for other people to come and visit and work, live, and play. And we can do that. It is lakefront property.
Right.
Why hasn't it ever been developed in the last 40, 50 years? Why hasn't it ever been developed? They put a walkout over the water and it's underwater. That's the only thing I've seen that been done to that lake since I was a child.
You remember that
And
was one
we
of the
that
first questions I asked when I came to the
why
community.
haven't we done anything with it? So
Right.
we have a tremendous opportunity in our community to recreate, to develop our community to a world-class community in West Michigan. And trust me, if we do that, West Michigan will be one of the best locations in the country to come visit. And we can do it. We have a golden opportunity. As many more people wanting to come develop in the Heights than what some seem to believe and think.
Right. Well, we have the assets and we have the talent. I mean, incredibly talented people in this community. And you look at what's going on with the pavilion, the vision with the pavilion and renovating the pavilion, which is revenue for the city that we were not. I mean, that the pavilion was closed for 20 some odd years, from what I understand. And now it's being renovated with revenue coming back to the city. And that's coming from somebody who's a son of this community with
Yes.
Will Roberson and his wife Fatima. I mean, that's homegrown. I
Yes,
mean, you look.
and we must continue to develop. We don't stop there. That property is golden, and everybody. This is what kills me. Everybody always worry about. These rumors were always circulating throughout the community for years. They selling Mona Lake. They doing this. They doing well. We ain't done nothing with it, but nobody's. I'm not saying we're ever gonna. It can't even be sold. Let's put it there. It cannot be sold.
Cannot
The
be.
covenant on the property. It cannot be sold. So we need to develop it. It's our property. So let's use this development and to start with this pavilion as the starting point to clean up our beach, to clean up our property and develop that land and do some other things
And
out there that can benefit this community as a whole and raise the value of it up.
No, so one of the questions that came up is whether or not the restaurant would be taking away the use of the park from the community, and the answer to that question is no. The agreement that we have in place is for this entity to operate the facility for service to the community. So it's not taking away a service from the community. It is intended to provide a service to the community. It is intended to open up that facility, which has not been open, to be able to utilize it and make use of something that is an asset of the city to provide services. So we look at this as the first step, as a catalyst of enhancing all of the services that we can begin to provide. The renovation of the beach, and we took the first step in putting sand out there. From what I understand, sand hasn't been added to that beach in 15 years. So, and that was just a small piece, and people were very appreciative of that. But that is just one step in the direction. There's so much more coming for Mona Lake Park. And this is just one step or one piece of that catalyst to be able to provide bigger and better services for that park. So, and ironically, some of the same people who are opposed to what we're trying to do with the budget were some of the same people that were opposing the revenue generation from the pavilion, the opposed the leasing of the lots, parking areas that are currently being used and not paid for, that belong to the city, opposed the parking plan, opposed the solar energy project, which is saving the city tens of thousands of dollars, up to I think the last estimate was $90,000 a year in savings that are generated from the solar plan. That opposed the new construction of new homes on those vacant lots, the vacant lot plan itself, the lease that we entered into with down at DPW for the economy towing. All these are revenue.
Opposed everything. Opposed
The
everything that we have in place that are going to be generating revenue for the city.
the
And
marijuana
that,
establishments as well. I mean, that's the
yes,
last one. Yeah.
yes. I mean, so if you're not for those things, then what are you for? We haven't heard those things. All of those that have voted against all these things that we have done, and some of the things we weren't able to do and we're trying to do that would be generating revenue for the city. If you're opposed to those things, then what are you for? We haven't heard those plans. All we hear is just no, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
Then come with what you want to see happen.
Well, let me say this part. When we come in a meeting and you vote no to approve an agenda,
I guess
what
that sums it up
more
then, huh?
what more, I mean, what more vision do we have? I mean, once the moment you come in, that's the second item on the agenda that's
Mm-hmm.
presented. It's the approval of the agenda.
Right.
And when we can't even vote to approve the agenda, I always say check when you hear people saying check the record. Well, check our records and see why are we doing this? What are our purpose? What are our reason? And why are we not moving forward? Unless we want to continue to see our city stumble.
Right.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think the challenge that I would put out there is, if you don't think that the ideas are the right ideas or the right way to go, um, bring forth new ideas, put forth alternatives or other options, because I think everybody is committed to this idea of getting better, to improving, to raising up our community. So putting ideas on the table for consideration that will bring revenue into this community, that will enhance and create a renaissance in this community, nobody's going to oppose that, or they shouldn't oppose it. But if you're going to be opposing the ideas that other people have, then you should always come with solutions and alternatives. And to date, that has not been the case.
zero.
There was a question that was posed in the chat there about the infrastructure plan. So I'm assuming you're talking about the need to address the roads. And so our strategy is we don't have the revenue like other communities to be able to go full force on paving. Our 4 mills only generate about 350 to 360,000 a year. That gets us a block and maybe 2 blocks of paving, depending on how bad the streets are. So, in order for us to really make a dent into the streets, we are going to have to continue to be strategic in leveraging underground water and sewer projects as a mechanism to both fix our aging infrastructure and fix the roads at the same time. I do
Or
not want us to open up a road and have to go back and open it up again. We should not be paving roads that we know underneath have pipes that are going to fail. So let's do it all at once. One cut is the concept. And
eh,
so we are going after the grant money. We have $7 million revolving loan fund, which 5 million of that is a grant. And we're going to leverage that to be able to replace lead pipes, replace force mains, water mains, in areas that have those needs, but also in areas that have the greatest need with regard to roads.
yeah,
So we
eh,
get 2 for 1, bang for our buck.
yeah, and not just that, to do all those things on top of the fund, the grant funds, we have to generate more revenue.
Mhm.
When we get more revenue, that allows us to do some of the things that has been neglected for many, many, many umpteen years,
Building houses.
building houses and
Mhm.
doing the things that these will generate and bring in more money for us to do the things that have been neglected. Nothing can happen overnight, but nothing can happen, period, without new revenue. As we said, 92% of the last 2021 budget, 92% of the monies spent were spent on things we must and are obligated to do. It's no ifs, ands, buts about it. This is where this money has to go on a monthly, weekly, yearly basis. 92% of that. So there's no frivolous spending. There's no unnecessary spending. We're spending money on things we got to spend it on. So in order to do the other things that we need to do, we got to bring in more money. We got to bring in more revenue, and we can. We have a prime opportunity to do just that. And I mean, we're on the verge of a breakthrough. We're on the verge of a renaissance.
There you go.
But we have to stop bickering and fighting over petty this personal things. I feel as though it's like there's a atmosphere of trying to catch someone doing wrong as opposed to catching them doing something right. And when I catch you, I got you. That's a bad basis for progress.
Very true. I want to thank Ms. Aubrey for that question. That was a great question about infrastructure. And those are the types of things
Oh yeah. I'm
where we
sorry, but I was going to speak to that. And another thing about the infrastructure and trying to do the street, we're coming up with new and creative ways that we can possibly generate some more revenues to do the streets and do other things. I do a lot of traveling. Everybody knows that. But when I'm traveling, I'm networking. I'm getting new and creative ideas from other politicians, other community leaders, or what they're doing in their community that helps them to keep their city going. And when I was in Georgia visiting my daughter recently, this commissioner for one of the communities down there, she was telling me that they have what they call a splosh income. It's a splosh fee or something. And they get 1 penny off of everything spent in their city that goes to anything that they want to use it for, and it generates millions and millions of dollars. And their community is not that much bigger than ours. So just some new ideas, but we got to figure out how we can do something like that. And we're working towards trying to find that out.
And so those types of questions allow us to get the information out there if it's not clear when we get it out there on the first run. So I appreciate those questions so that we can clarify, because I truly believe, and to the point Ms. Aubrey was making, that if we do get the information out there, and I think Ms. Vines also commented on that, if we do get the information out there, then people are better equipped to be able to be part of the vision that will allow us to move forward and embrace that renaissance. So,
And yes, and communicate and getting the information out as when you were hired in, Mr. Bell, that was one of the challenges that this community faced with, is getting information out to the community. And one of the questions that I posed to you was
right.
about, do you know of any ideas or ways that we could better communicate to our community to get information out on a quicker and more efficient basis? And you came up with an idea, an idea that you had known and seen happen, and presented it to council in the form of the Blooms app that
Mobile
we had tried to get put forth. This application would allow the city to communicate with the citizens on a moment's notice, provide information of any emergency situations or any other things, and not just that, give us the ability to go directly to any home in the community. And
Right.
it had a lot of features that would have been great for the community. However, the council said no, so that's neither here nor there, and that's that. But being able to communicate better is one of the things that we're trying to do. And this is why we have Mr. Bell on this weekly show, providing the information of things that's happening. What's the name of your show? In the Need to Know, So You Know What You Know? Something like that.
Reaching New Heights. Yes.
Reaching New Heights. Yeah. And you need to know what you need to know. So he provides information weekly about what's happening in the city. You can come ask these questions. You can call in. You can email him. You can, and so weekly information, come right here to hear everything that you want to know that's going on in the city. Ask your questions. This is, I don't know of any better stream than right here. You got the man that's managing the city, running the radio this show. So this is the best means right here.
Yep. Well, I appreciate that, Mayor, and I did want to comment on Councilman Jenkins' comments about bringing together with the education system. And I think that's a vital part of the renaissance of this community. Having been a school superintendent myself, I am committed to education. Education is a critical piece of the renaissance of community. The success and failure of the community on both sides lives and dies with the ability of our community to provide quality education. The city can't thrive without the school system, and the school system can't thrive without the city coming to the table together. If we can create that collaboration, the dollars that come in for education married together with the dollars that come into the city is a bang for the buck for our community. And so anything that we can do in order to improve the strategic use of those relationships and those monies will bring us closer to our goal and our objectives. So with that, I would like to go ahead and wrap up our show. We had a little bit longer show with the guests, having two guests join us. And so I appreciate everybody that tuned in. I really love this format where we can have conversation and engagement through the messaging. And I hope you continue to tune in. And please put out the prayers, because I'm concerned about what we can and cannot do if we don't get this budget question resolved. Thank you for tuning in. Please reach out to your representatives and implore them to meet the fiduciary responsibility of the city and give us a balanced budget, approved balanced budget before the 1st. So with that, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor Watt, for joining the show, and Councilman Jenkins, even though I think we lost him. And thank you for everybody that tuned in to Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, the city manager, City of Muskegon Heights, where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know.
Oh, that's how it goes.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.
The wait is over. The all-new Umoja Radio Network, home to over 40 Black-owned radio stations and podcasts, is here for you. Connect to the world's fastest-growing collection of unapologetically Black and proud media, from podcasts to independent Black-owned radio stations, and access to the important news and music you need. Umoja Radio is from our culture, by our culture, for our culture. The all-new Umoja Radio is available right now